afternoon, everybody. My name is Dana Green Remedios, and I'm a registered holistic nutritionist. And I would like to talk to you about what you can do at home for your immunity. I'm going to debunk some immune health myths, and I'm also going to help you know what you can do around the house to take care of yourself and stay the most immune to anything that might be going around as possible. Well, just things around the house. So, hi everybody, thanks so much for joining me. I'm so glad that you're on. So, I am a holistic nutritionist, and we like to focus first and foremost on food. And I want to debunk some immune health myths. One of them is that there is really going to be a magic bullet out there that is going to take care of us. And this is really a misconception. And I'm sure that if you're listening right now, you probably already agree with me that you got to take care of lifestyle factors. You got to look at 5 lifestyle factors. This is my belief that there are 5 main things that you have to look after. And these are your diet, your sleep, your supplements, your exercise, and what I call emotional regulation. And a lot of other people like to refer to as stress management. So these 5 topics, I'm going to break them down a little bit for you today on Chalkboard Mag. And if you follow the Chalkboard Mag, you know that there's a lot of other articles like all over the place that you can go and delve deeper into these 5 topics, whether it be diet, stress, sleep, all these things. You can find more information about them. And they've been doing a whole series on things that you can go and get more resources on, which is really fantastic. So diet is one thing that I know a lot about as a nutritionist. And what does it mean when you're looking at your diet, when you want to support your immune health? One of the main things that we want to do is just get a variety of foods. So it might be hard if you're on total lockdown to get a wide variety of foods. You might not be able to go to your local farmer's market anymore and get all the produce that you got before. You might not be able to go to 4 or 5 different places and source out a lot of different things. You might be trying to just get it done in a much more convenient kind of one-stop shop. But you can still get a lot of variety. And even if you're getting things that last a long time, like your pulses and your rice and that kind of stuff, you can still get a variety of different things in your diet. So for everybody who's joining, I'm so glad to see you live with me. And if you have questions, just let me know. I would love to answer your questions live today if you have questions about how diet, sleep, supplements, exercise, or emotional regulation affect you in terms of your immunity, or you have a question about immunity, please just let me know and I'll try and get back to you right on this live. I'll be with you for at least 10 minutes or so and maybe longer if you've got more questions. So in terms of what you want to do with variety, you want to get variety in your plant foods, in your fruits and vegetables, in your produce. You want to get lots of colors. And when you're looking for lots of colors, you're not just looking for the rainbow, the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, the purple. You're actually also looking for a variety of gray, brown, whites, and beiges. I know that we think of white foods. This is a myth that I often have to debunk. We think of white foods as being junk, as being empty. But what is cauliflower but if not a white food? Mushrooms, which are so great for our immunity, are also just different shades of brown and gray. And these are very valuable foods with some great compounds. So don't forget to get a full rainbow, including your blacks, your whites, your grays, and your browns. Tans, things like that are also very helpful. All of these different colors represent different phytonutrients and phytochemicals. The purples have your anthocyanins, like elderberry. I'm wearing kind of a mauve color today. This color, it represents, when you get it in food, some really great phytochemicals like anthocyanins that you can also find in places like blueberry that protect the eyes, that also protect the capillaries. And these antioxidants help you at the cellular level to defend against damage from free radicals. And that overall makes you healthier and better able to defend against anything that might come your way. So what are some other things that we want to look for in our diet? I mentioned variety and I mentioned colorful produce. I really like making sure we get enough essential fatty acids, EFAs. So you want to get omega-3s, you want to get the essential omega-3s and 6s, LA and ALA, ALA is a kind of omega-3 that you might find in nuts and seeds, and these are really important for an integrous cell membrane. So the membrane around your cell is going to help regulate what comes in and what goes out. So how easily toxins get out and how easily nutrients get in. That sounds pretty important, right? So you really want to make sure that your cell membranes are taken care of. And one thing that you can do that helps with that is getting enough essential fatty acids. So nuts and seeds like flax and chia, you can get it from hemp or sacha inchi seeds as well. You can take, eat fish, deep sea oily fish as well. These are great sources of these things that are really anti-inflammatory. And reducing inflammation overall is a really important aspect to our immunity. Here's another myth I'm going to debunk, that we can boost our immune system and it's just going to get more and more and more active. This is kind of a misconception. Some of our favorite foods, herbs, and things that we can do, interventions that we can do to help our immune system are not so much boosting the immune system. They're more modulators of the immune system. And so if we have several of these modulators, they all help to make a more even response. And that's really important with immune health. We don't just want more immune health. We can go too far in that direction and get dysregulated immunity, autoimmunity, things like Hashimoto's and lupus and types of arthritis like rheumatoid arthritis. We don't want that. And we don't want allergies, which is also an overactive immune system where we're misinterpreting things as being not good for us. So what do? We want a robust immune response when things are unhelpful, and we want to respond to them like types of viruses or bacteria, and we want to know how to respond to those threats. And so how does food help us with that? Food, when we have enough variety and we have enough produce and fiber and things like that, it feeds our microbiome. And we know that we want a healthy and robust microbiome. And science is starting to discover that when we're missing one or two strains of bacteria, we might then become intolerant to one or another foods, that those bacteria are able to really educate the immune system to say, hey, that food is a friend, I like that food, and we don't react to it. So if we're missing that bacteria, we might find out that we're allergic to it. And that's an immune system reaction that we don't want. So by getting lots of variety and feeding our microbiome, maybe even taking a probiotic supplement, we can have a more robust and diverse microbiome, and we can avoid having immune dysregulation like allergies or autoimmunity while improving our immune response to real true threats. So some of the things that can support us in this respect include carotenoids, vitamin D, zinc, B vitamins. We want all of these things. And as long as you're getting enough so that you're not deficient in any of them, that's great. You don't necessarily need to megadose on any particular thing. It's not so much a magic bullet kind of approach that we want to take. It's a well-rounded lifestyle. And so I talked about diet, and I've kind of started talking about supplements as well. But the other pieces out of these 5 immune puzzle pieces are the sleep, the exercise, and the emotional regulation. These are all lifestyle factors that we have a lot of control over. We can do a lot in terms of improving our sleep. We can try and keep a regular sleep schedule. We can try and make sure that we block out all those blue light devices and Wi-Fi devices before going to sleep. I know that you've all heard this by now. And it's true that this can make a big difference in the way that we sleep, because it actually affects us at the level of our mitochondria, the way they're able to generate energy for us. And if we keep them healthy, we are also going to be more likely able to defend ourselves in the case of something that is potentially harmful to us, something that our immune system might have to deal with. And when we sleep deeply, we have better levels of melatonin, and melatonin also affects and helps to regulate parts of our immune system. So everything's really connected. This is why, holistic nutrition looks at the connections of all these things, and it's really important to not just do one thing like your diet. You really have to think about how you're living. And if you're really stressed out, like if you're living with a bunch of roommates that you really can't stand, or I'm sure that with the current situation, there are some people that would even like to be getting divorced but are stuck living together right now. And sometimes we just have to live in situations that are really hard. We might be catering or taking care of our aging parents, or we might not be unable to visit our parents or grandparents right now. There's lots of different ways that we could be stressed. And the way that we deal with stress is super important. So stress management is usually pillar number 5 that people talk about. I like to call it emotional regulation, because we can't necessarily change certain aspects of what's stressing us out. We can't change that we want to be together and we can't be together right now. We can't change necessarily our work situation if we either have not enough work right now or too much work. We can't change our financial situation, but we can change the way that we decide to manage our own emotions about these things, how we want to deal with setbacks. And so I really encourage you, if you're feeling at a low level of energy, try and find a way to get that energy up, whether it's moving your body or something like that. And I see that there's a question in, would you recommend paleo diet for someone who had autoimmune like Hashimoto's? I personally have Hashimoto's. It's totally in remission right now. And I feel that a paleo diet can be a great step if you're not already taking grains out. You might find that that's a really big improvement for you. I know for a lot of people with Hashimoto's, taking out the gluten makes a massive difference. I would try at least for a few months completely eliminating all gluten-containing grains. If you want to go totally grain-free, sometimes grains or seeds or pseudo-grains even can be a bother for people with autoimmunity. You might want to try taking those out as well. Dairy often gets mistaken in the body because there's some biomimicry there with gluten. So sometimes if taking out gluten helps, you might want to also try taking out dairy and see if that helps you even more. And finally, for Hashimoto's, check your micronutrient status. Sometimes adding a little bit of zinc or selenium makes a huge difference in your antibody levels. I know my own antibody levels were sky high, above 6,000, off the charts, and I was able to bring them down to 300 just with the addition of selenium. So do take a look at micronutrients and see if that helps. The autoimmune version of paleo, if you want to try that one for your autoimmune issues like Hashimoto's and other issues, you might find that that works really well for you. I don't necessarily recommend staying on any really restrictive diet for too long, because the first pillar that I was talking about for diet is variety. So we want to keep as much variety in our diet as possible, adding anything back in that we are able to add back in as soon as we're able to take out the inflammation and bring the level of stress down in the body and heal the gut. You want to start to add things back in as soon as you can. So just keep that in mind, that you don't want to stay on too restrictive of a diet for too long. And even something healthy like autoimmune paleo can rely on the same types of ingredients too often, like almond flour. You don't want to start relying on almond flour all the time, or you get imbalanced in a different direction that you don't want to go in. So I hope that helps. 2 years gluten-free? Well, yeah, you want to maybe do an elimination diet and then start adding things back in and see if that helps you. And do try those micronutrient approaches. Sometimes that can make a huge difference. If you want to, leave any contact information, I can get back to you later and we can talk about it at a much greater length if that's something that you want to do, and I can give you more pointers and stuff like that for sure. I do want to talk about stress management in terms of immunity and autoimmunity. So one thing that people run into if they have autoimmune conditions is that they get better, and then they get a setback. And oftentimes these setbacks are because they start pushing themselves too hard. It's either in the area of exercise or in the area of overworking. Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. I'm happy to help, Shauna. So yeah, if you tend to overwork, or you tend to jump back into too heavy duty of an exercise program, if that's you, hello, totally type AAA personality over here, that's me, then you might get yourself into trouble, because what will happen is that inflammation will start to flare. And inflammation is our friend, and it is a tool of the immune system to help us. It does give us, a lot of benefits, but we can go too far in one direction. So if you want, definitely look at the potential of finding a program of exercise or a timetable for your work that is a little bit more moderate and a little bit more kind and flexible, so that you're not beating yourself up and going too far in one direction, that you're actually doing just enough exercise to not trigger any additional inflammation. You might find that is helpful for you. Now, in terms of emotional regulation, it's really not so much the stress in our lives, but how we respond to that, or the way we think about it, that really is going to affect us in the cellular level and at the level of our health. What we visualize and what we intend is really going to affect us in ways that science is really only beginning to unravel and discover. So I think that learning how to get yourself into a happy place is definitely part of your immune plan. So I have another question here. Is stevia considered a good sugar substitute? There are good and bad to almost everything out there when it comes to even our favorite health foods like spinach and almonds. There is a dark side. There's a dark side to everything. And in fact, sometimes with foods, they help us because they are a little bit stressful to the body. And I won't go off on too much of a tangent on that. But sometimes the reason they are good for us is somewhat because they're hard on us and make our body then react by becoming stronger. In the case of stevia, it has the benefit of not triggering a big blood sugar reaction, which is really important for our overall health, is our glucose management. So I do think that it's a wonderful alternative, especially if you have certain types of gut bugs overgrowing and you're not too strong that way, like you tend to be very prone to getting infections for things like bacteria or yeast. If so, stevia is your friend. I would just say don't overuse stevia too much in certain cases. If you are looking to get pregnant, you're trying to stay fertile, there is some there's some research that shows that it may affect us negatively in that way. So that's one thing to consider. And then another thing to consider is that it can potentially be a source of oxalates. So if you're sensitive to those and you have a high oxalate diet, like the AIP diet can tend to be quite high oxalate, for example, then you may want to use it in moderation and try a variety of different types of sugars. So if you have any further questions, please throw them in there and I'd be happy to help. I really like honey, and I like to suggest honey as much as possible for people, especially in relation to this whole immune conversation that we're having today, talking about natural things that you can do at home to strengthen your immunity. Honey is one of the most delicious ways to do that. We can sweeten things naturally. If you're not a vegan, especially, it's a great source of a lot of antimicrobial compounds. There are about 10 antimicrobial compounds in most honeys. If you're looking at Manuka honey is a great source of even some more additional antimicrobial compounds. So those would be really great to do. So finally, I'm going to come back because we've talked about diet, sleep, supplements, exercise, and stress or emotional regulation. I want to touch back on supplements. So now that I've told you that immunity isn't really about one magic bullet and that there isn't just one aspect of health that we can look at in terms to benefit our immunity the most, it's really this concert of things that we need to be thinking about. I'm going to circle back to supplements because there are some things that we can take that can make a difference to our health, and there's no reason not to use them. So some of these things like honey, we can consider them foods. Elderberry, we can consider them foods. Omega-3s, like I was mentioning before, we can consider those foods. We can just integrate those into our healthy daily diet, our weekly diet. We can get a wide variety of sources of things that have antioxidants, and these antimicrobial compounds can be found not just in honey, but in herbs and spices. We can integrate lots of those. Hi, thanks for saying hello. And when you're integrating these things into your diet and you're having a wide variety of them, you're feeding your microbiome because they may be prebiotic, they may be helping out the microbiome. Things like garlic can help to modulate the internal immune system because our microbiome communicates and educates our immune system. They really, they are the educators of the immune system to let them know what is friend, what is foe, what to react to. So By eating well, feeding our microbiome, we're really taking care of our immunity from the inside out without having to push things like our white blood cells or anything at all. So what if you're exercise intolerant? There's a great question. That is kind of what I was touching on before. If you have an autoimmune condition, especially, people tend to become exercise intolerant very quickly when they're having a flare. So if you've heard that term, it just means when there's like, a bunch of symptoms coming up again. And sometimes it's a combination of emotional stress, chemical stress, and physical stress. So if we're doing too much exercise, we might, have a setback. So it might be possible for you to find a great online exercise program like Autoimmune Strong. It's actually made for people that tend to fall into setbacks whenever they try and push themselves physically. I also have an at-home workout booklet, and you can do a lot of these things at your own pace at home, which is really wonderful. And we all have this opportunity right now, like it or not, to try at-home workouts. And I also have an immune support booklet that sort of outlines a lot of what I'm talking about today. If any of you want that, you can catch me at dana@healthywealthyhabits.ca. Just shoot me an email and I'll send you my at-home workout guide, my immune support guide. It's got, pretty much a lot of things that I would recommend to anybody to try. So yeah, you're very welcome for the info. Yeah. So honey is a great natural sweetener. I do like stevia, and there are some benefits to some others like xylitol as well. In terms of getting your sweet tooth satisfied, the best thing you can do is actually to not be afraid of some of the sweeter sources of natural carbs like fruit and vegetables that have sweetness. I mean, especially when you roast vegetables, they have a lot of sweetness. And that can be a way to quench your sweet tooth so you don't feel like you need to go reaching for sweets quite as often. And then you're also getting the fiber and the phytonutrients to feed your microbiome and support your immunity. So I hope that answers a lot of people's questions. If you have any more, I'm still here for a little bit. Can I be more specific? Can you be more specific too and tell me what to be more specific about? For example, if we eat a wide variety of things like oats, bananas, rice, these things all feed our microbiome with resistant starch, especially if it's unripened bananas, cooked and cooled rice, cooked and cooled potatoes, like you might eat in like a potato salad or like you might eat in rice balls or sushi. That cooked and cooled starch feeds our gut bacteria in a way that helps support our health. The phytonutrients I was talking about are all the colorful things. So the oranges in the carrots and orange peppers and cantaloupe, and the reds in strawberries and watermelon. So the colors give us a clue as to what they do. So the red in tomato and watermelon is lycopene, and that lycopene can be very helpful for us. And if we want to get from supplements, the anthocyanins, which can be found in purple foods, you can also take them in supplement form, like elderberry has a great wealth of anthocyanins, and these are shown to support our immunity by actually slowing down virus replication. They can actually interfere with virus replication. So if you get exposed to something, it'll keep it from replicating and taking over your body quite as quickly, so that you'll have fewer symptoms for less time and potentially not even really know that you came down with something if you take it right at the outset of a virus. In terms of other supplements, things that are good sources of vitamin C, like acerola is a very rich source of vitamin C. So are kiwi fruit, cauliflower and broccoli, sauerkraut, these things all supply vitamin C. And so this is one way that we actually can strengthen ourselves. What do I think about multivitamins, like women's once a day? So multivitamins are pretty good. Multi-minerals don't seem to work as well. So if it's a multivitamin and mineral supplement, you're probably not getting all of your minerals, because all of our food goes down through our stomach, gets digested, and then it makes its way out into this first part of our small intestine. And that's the duodenum, where almost all of our nutrient absorption happens. And in that area, things compete for absorption sites. And so some things just kind of diffuse over, they're passively absorbed. Some things are actively absorbed. A lot of our minerals, like iron, is an actively absorbed one. And so if you have calcium and magnesium, which you need, and iron, which you need, and they're all in there in the same supplement, they're competing for absorption sites, and you might lose out, you might miss out on optimal nutrients and optimal absorption of those nutrients because you're not able to absorb them all at the same time. So you might want to take something separate instead. The timing of nutrients, breaking it up over the day, seems to work a lot better. There's a lot of research showing that it's better to take some of our supplements in the morning away from others and some of our supplements at night. And if you want to ask me more about that too, I can also break that down if you have a specific question. If you're losing hair, I would first look at if it's autoimmune thyroid, then thyroid being downregulated, hypothyroid, which is usually Hashimoto's, is a hypothyroid condition, usually also downregulates or has a feedback loop with your ferritin, which is your form of iron, that's your storage form of iron. So if you're losing a lot of hair, if it's coming out a lot, you probably are low in ferritin. So your ferritin level being associated with low thyroid is very, very common, and you might just need some more iron. So find yourself a good, well-absorbed, low-dose liquid iron, something that you can take every day, take it away from your other supplements like your calcium, magnesium, and it would maybe really help with your hair. Now, I'm not diagnosing you and saying that that's why your hair is coming out, but it is a really common reason. And if you're not getting enough protein and you're not forming enough collagen, then your skin, your hair, your nails can also all suffer from that. And so the components of healthy collagen making are complete, proteins, the amino acids that you need, and vitamin C and silica. So if you are getting enough vitamin C and you're getting enough protein, it might be that you're missing enough silica to build strong hair and nails. So you might want to take a look at getting maybe another source of silica in your diet. Now you're in remission, you're having difficulty losing weight, your levels are in check, and maybe you have liver stones. Yeah, so a lot of women, if we have one hormone out of balance, a lot of the time we have others that are also going out of whack because they're all connected. So our adrenal glands and our thyroid are pretty well connected. There's this HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis as well. There's also connection between our ovarian hormones and stuff. So what this has to do with that is that the gallbladder is very reactive to estrogen hormones. So if you have, estrogen levels that are out of whack or any other hormones that are out of whack, you might find that you're having a lot of trouble with your gallbladder, and a lot of women do. So I would also say that sometimes just digestive support in general is really great if you have any kind of thyroid issues, because oftentimes that means that you've got downregulated stomach acid and you're not digesting food as well, and this can cause issues. So any kind of digestive support, digestive enzymes are great, but if it's specifically fat related or related to bile or gallstones or those kinds of things, you might want to look at a digestive bitter formula. Those are really going to target the bile and the gallbladder and the liver and stuff like that. So medical medium for liver cleanse. Yeah, I would say that there are a few different types of ways to cleanse the liver out there. And I would recommend probably not forcing anything. If anything's a pushing kind of cleanse, you want to support probably the whole body at once if you can, instead of working on one system at a time. That can be pretty stressful for the body if you're already someone who's dealing with some health issues. You don't want to cause more stress by forcing something from one area to another. I would probably support the whole body with a gentle whole body cleanse. If that's available to you, something that's going to nourish as well as take out at the same time, especially if you're already kind of in a health stress situation, that'll be a better way to care for yourself instead of just kind of purging. But there are a lot of nice ways that you can take care of the liver with herbs. Milk thistle's great, burdock is great, artichoke, dandelion. These are all fantastic. The liver also needs sufficient amounts of choline, which one rich source would be eggs, or you can take a phosphatidylcholine supplement, or also betaine is very important for liver health and good fat digestion and bile. So betaine is usually in beets. You can get a concentrated beet supplement if you want to just take it in like a powder or crystal form. Those are the crystal form of beets is very delicious and a good source of betaine. So those are great ways to support your liver as well. Now, Hashimoto's, yeah, it's an underdiagnosed and it's rampant. There's so many people that have it, And there are a lot of reasons why that may be, but if you have Hashimoto's, definitely be thinking about not just supporting your thyroid glands, but also supporting your adrenal glands. Especially as women, like, we take on so much. We're just like doing so much that causes that stress response. Sometimes it's the chronic low-grade everyday stress that we're dealing with, and sometimes it's acute issues. But whatever it is, anything that you can do to manage that with either herbs like adaptogenic mushrooms or some of our favorite things. You can use those, with cacao, like mixed as a drink. That's really great. Ashwagandha is super supportive. A lot of people like that. Holy basil is a wonderful one. These are all herbs that can really help with these things. So licorice is supposed to help with adrenal fatigue. It does. So licorice root is a great way to support low adrenal function, because the adrenals are also responsible for managing our electrolyte balance to some extent. Part of what might be going on is, some imbalance with electrolytes. Sometimes when you're supporting your adrenals, you also want to give them a lot more minerals. So think about that as well. You might be wanting to drink broths. You might be wanting to take, calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium. All of these are going to be very supportive. And if you're doing something that's very low carb or keto, then you really want to watch out for adrenal function and adrenal support, because you need more minerals if you're doing keto, and you need more minerals if you have weak adrenal function. So together, they could be, a recipe for quite a bit of a disaster unless you supplement with some minerals. Cat's claw is great. Dandelions, dandelion tea, can't say enough about it. Dandelion is fantastic. Intermittent fasting. Yeah, so intermittent fasting is a way that the body can get into a state where it can do a bit of a cleanup, a bit of autophagy, where the senescent cells or the detritus, the unused or unhelpful parts, can be cleared away. And so the lysosome of the cell can actually do a little bit of a cleanup kind of activity. And so if we want to help ourselves at the cellular level, we can do, again, a cleanse that's going to provide antioxidants while also cleaning out and supporting the liver at cleaning things out. This is one way. And we can also do periods of not eating or actually feeling hungry. This is one of the best things we can do for our longevity and our biological age, to actually reduce or manage our biological age and the way that we're aging at a physical biological level. So I would definitely suggest intermittent fasting for women. Especially if we're moving towards our middle years or perimenopausal kind of stage, then I would really recommend that the meal that you skip would be dinner if you're doing a daily cycle of intermittent fasting, and not so much skipping breakfast. That is usually different than what is often recommended, but those recommendations are often made with men. And I find that in my own clinical, my own experience, that women do a lot better if they stop eating earlier at night, like maybe they cut off at 6 p.m. or something, and then they do eat breakfast. So you might want to try that if you want to experiment with a daily intermittent fasting cycle. Or time-restricted eating can also be, restricted to taking 1 or 2 fasts a week, not necessarily on a daily cycle. So you can do what works for you. There are intermittent fasting coaches out there that can actually help you with this. It can be a bit of a learning curve, so you might want to look for someone that can actually help you exactly with that. There are some really good ones out there. If you need a recommendation, just ask. Is biotin an effective supplement? Well, we have been talking a little bit about hair loss a little bit ago and what causes that. So one of the primary reasons for hair loss or hair fall is it's this really interesting process, but telogen effluvium is the term for when the cycle of hair falling out and growing back in, which a bunch of the probably hairdressers in the crowd probably know a lot about, is that cycle gets interrupted. So instead of 80% of your hair being in the growth phase and 20% being dead and ready to fall out, it switches, and usually because of some kind of stressful situation. That stressful situation can be a hormonal change like pregnancy or menopause. It can be another kind of stress in your life, like an emotional stress, or a physical stress like an accident. And usually those things are related to a sudden drop in your iron levels, and iron is usually the thing that makes the biggest difference in people's hair. And usually I find that their ferritin numbers They could even be in the healthy range, but they're just kind of in the lower end of the healthy range. And if they bring their numbers up to like the higher end of the healthy range, then they see real improvements in their hair, around the 80 number of, ferritin levels. Usually, you get great hair growth. Biotin, however, it will be usually included in these hair supplements, but you have to be careful if you supplement with biotin for this interesting reason, which is that some people have hair falling out because of their thyroid. And if you take a biotin supplement,